it's actually pretty simple. The way that the hacks come through the printers, it only works if you have a wireless printer or a printer that has Bluetooth and allows you to connect your iPhone or another device wirelessly, okay? And here's what happens. HP, I'll just use HP as an example. HP will allow an iPhone to Bluetooth a file to it to print, okay? Or to it to scan and treat as a scan. And what's happening is people have gotten smart enough to know that by using the iPhone and part of the scan, it'll show every computer that's connected to the printer, and you can send a file from your iPhone to that computer through the printer.
So what you're saying is, if I've got Bluetooth and wireless turned on my printer, somebody can walk by with their iPhone and see what we have and send something there.
Right.
So, how do I stop these guys?
Yeah.
Because I like using wireless on our printer.
Exactly. So you can still use wireless on the printer.
Hello, welcome to our inaugural podcast, helping small businesses get more out of their information technology. Today, on our first inaugural podcast, we have Peter Purcell, Managing Director of Trenegy Incorporated in Houston. Prior to Trenegy, Peter was a partner with several Big Four, including Deloitte, Ernst & Young, and PricewaterhouseCoopers. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you very much, Bill. I'm really honored to be part of your inaugural podcast.
Well, I'm glad you are, because I think this one is going to be very valuable for small businesses. And one of the things we're going to talk about today, and Peter's going to share with us, is how can small businesses get IT right?
Yeah, absolutely. What we find is that small businesses overpay for services that they don't use or don't need. And then when they do need services, they don't get them. For example, I'm a small business, and I've had a situation where my IT support person wasn't available to me because he was hiking Mount Kilimanjaro. How frustrating is that?
Well, that's an interesting point. And actually, today's podcast is brought to you by Evan, Your IT Guy. Evan, Your IT Guy is an on-demand platform sourcing IT professionals and helping small businesses solve their IT problems immediately. And I think that would be probably something you guys would want to use.
Absolutely. I think I'll give it a try. It sounds very intriguing and maybe something that my customers could use.
So today we're going to be talking about getting IT right. And Peter Purcell from Trenegy is here to share with small businesses how they can get IT right. So Peter, when we talk about small businesses and you talk about complexities with IT, tell me a little bit about that and what they're experiencing and some of the problems they have.
Sure. What we're finding a lot is that small businesses have typically over-purchased information technology assets. I'm talking, fondly boxes, pipes, and wires. That is too many servers, too robust a network, and spending way too much money on IT support. I had a friend of mine very recently that came to me and asked me to look at a contract, and his IT support guy was charging him $225 a PC per month to
You're
do
kidding.
some. I am not. It blew me away. And when you took a look at the contract, all that my friend was getting was really some monitoring software that can be bought online directly for $20 a PC. And all the software does is just delay Windows downloads and give you reports when somebody installs a piece of software on a PC. Absolutely useless.
All right, so let's talk about PCs a little bit. Okay, so you go to the store and you buy a laptop, and it never seems to work right away. It doesn't do the things you want it to do. What are some of the things that you recommend small businesses do when they do buy a laptop?
Yeah, so first of all, I think that in purchasing a laptop, given today's Windows environment, and I'll really focus more on Windows because most businesses can't really use a Mac to run their business. They can use a Mac as a tool to do graphics and stuff like that.
Right,
so
right.
let's just focus on Windows laptops for a second. Windows 10 actually has been a watershed application for Microsoft. I get no money from Microsoft. I don't even own Microsoft stock. But Windows 10 has been a watershed moment because what it does is it allows older laptops to run longer and faster. So what you need to do is go ahead and spend a little extra money on buying a laptop with a solid state drive so it runs really fast.
Okay, now, wait a minute. Solid state drive, what does that mean?
Well, you have two different types of hard drives that you can put into your PC, right? One is a magnetic drive that runs on platters. It's the old, I want to say albums, like long play albums, which many of your listeners probably have never seen. But basically it spins around and it uses magnets to read and store.
So it's one of those that makes noise sometimes.
Makes a lot of noise.
So a solid state one is solid.
Solid state uses basically the same memory chips that run RAM. I think everybody knows what RAM is. And so that's what a solid state drive is. So get something with a solid state drive and as much RAM as you can get, minimum 8 gig of RAM, and you're pretty much good to go.
Okay, so should I buy a warranty? That like at Best Buy, they try to sell you a warranty.
No, absolutely not. The majority of the time, your laptops will far outlast the warranty. And the secret for making your laptops last a long time is basically removing all the bloatware that comes with it and just installing the software that you're going to use. And why do I say that? Bloatware makes your PC run a lot.
Okay, so give me an example of bloatware. What do you mean by that?
So bloatware would be any of those games that you get downloaded on your PC that you never play, but they always load up in the background, things like that. It's basically software that the PC providers like to give you to where they get ad money from, or they want to try to get you to sign up for software that you'll never use, and then they get a little bit of money for that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is when you buy a new laptop, make sure you get a solid state drive, you have Windows 10, and then you get rid of all the bloatware.
Exactly.
And then your laptop should be running like a charm. But
Absolutely.
It doesn't. So then you have to hook it up to a internet service provider, and that's the hard part for some of these small businesses. What do you recommend for them as far as internet service goes?
Well, so that's another place that you should not short yourself, is to get as fast an internet as possible and connect to it using Wi-Fi. Don't waste money running cables and stuff like that. The new technologies that are out there for Wi-Fi allow you to connect wirelessly, and that way you can move around. You can grab your laptop and move around, and you don't have to worry about being tethered to the wall.
But isn't that slower than having the wire connected?
Absolutely not. The new Wi-Fi runs just as fast, if not faster, than cable.
Wow. Okay. So do Wi-Fi, do wireless.
Do Wi-Fi, do wireless. Absolutely.
So what if you're in a big warehouse and you need, because I know my Wi-Fi at home only goes halfway across my house. What do I do if I have a big warehouse?
That's really a good question, Bill, and so I'm going to dive into a little bit of a technical thing for a second.
All right, don't use too much jargon here.
I'm not. And actually, you can go out and you can search on this on Amazon. What you need to do is use a technology called Mesh Wi-Fi.
Mesh Wi-Fi.
Mesh Wi-Fi. And what that allows you to do is you can put out as many access points as you need. You only need one directly connected to your modem, and the rest connect wirelessly. And unlike repeaters of the old days, these things don't slow down.
Okay, so this sounds complicated. Do I need to have a computer degree to go install Mesh Wi-Fi in my warehouse?
No, there's 2 or 3 different providers or manufacturers that basically it's plug and play. And the cool thing is that they make these apps that run on your iPhone or your Android phone. And the minute you hook up what's called the base station, which is the first piece of the Mesh Wi-Fi, to your router or your modem, then it will walk you through placing the satellites, or what they called. And it will be smart enough to know that it will just create your network for you. I'm not even going to bore you with the details, but it's really cool.
Well, that's great. Hey, folks, we have Peter Purcell, Managing Director of Trenegy here, sharing with small businesses and how to get IT right. And I think what we hear is small businesses are losing a lot of productivity and time having to keep IT running. So you might be a restaurant owner, you might be a company that's a logistics provider, and your computer system goes down, and then all of a sudden you lose revenue. So Peter's here helping small businesses understand how they can get IT right and not lose productivity with that. So you've talked a little bit about PCs, we've talked about Wi-Fi. Okay, here's the big thing, phones. Okay, so I have some friends who've gotten rid of their landlines completely, and I also have some friends who have small businesses. They just use the cell phone. Didn't that? What do you think about that?
Actually, that's excellent. And in fact, cell phone service is a little bit more reliable than landlines. If you go back and do studies and look at the studies, you'll see that cell phones are sometimes more efficient and more cost effective than landlines. And you actually kind of set me up in a good way, because most cell phone services allow you to connect with your Wi-Fi as well. And so that's, again, why I suggest you have such a large internet connection and so fast an internet connection.
Okay, so it's okay for a company to just say, we don't need any wires in the building except for electricity, right? And have cell phones.
Absolutely.
Okay, so so sometimes you go into some places and they don't have very good cell phone coverage. What do you do?
Well, again, if you have the right internet service, you can easily tap into your internet, and your cell phone can connect wirelessly to its service, and you can make the calls that way. The only time that I ever recommend clients get hard landline is if you are doing very, very heavy customer service, where you have lots of people calling in and lots of people calling and asking for customer service. But even in that case, you can use wireless phones. You can connect through using what's called voice over IP, and you still don't need cables. For example, in our office, all of our conference rooms have wireless phones. There's no connectivity to a cable anywhere, and we're using a phone number that looks just like anybody else's phone number.
So what you're telling me is if I go into a traditionally office building, they'll have this big rack with all these, wires coming in and out. You're telling me that's kind of old school and going away.
That's very old school and going away, And the good thing is by using the wireless network and your modem and the internet and all of that, you don't have the situation that those poor people are here in Houston have, which is you get flooded and everything's gone. For those businesses that live on the internet, and we'll talk a little bit later about the cloud, they're back up and running. They never go down because you don't have these big pieces of hardware that get flooded and don't work.
Okay, Peter, you just used the word, and I don't know if you did this on purpose. I was going to ask about this. Use this word cloud.
Yes.
Okay? And I will tell you, I talk to a lot of people out there, and some of them are very hesitant to use the cloud, okay? And maybe just what does that mean, first of all?
Well, let me back into this just a little bit. I'll do this a little differently.
Just don't use too much jargon on me.
I'm not going to use any jargon at all. So these people who are nervous about the cloud, do they have bank accounts?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Do they do trades? Like, do they own stock and trade stock? Do they have investments? Do they have 401ks?
Most small business owners do, yeah.
They have 401ks. Do they do wire transfers?
Well, their business, I'm sure they do. Yeah.
Do they accept credit cards?
Yeah.
And they get paid
you're
when they're
asking
processing.
me a bunch of questions.
Right. I'm just asking you.
Yeah.
Guess what? All of those services are taken care of in the cloud. So if you're willing to bank on this, and I use the word bank on purpose.
Bank on the cloud.
If you're willing to do your financials in the cloud, why wouldn't you run your business in the cloud? All the cloud is you're sharing hardware somewhere. Somebody else is managing it for you. And these people who manage it are very, very good at what they do. And by the way, they're far away, and through the internet, you get great connectivity to it, and you don't have to worry about paying for air conditioning, support, or even worry whether or not you're going to get flooded out.
Okay, so what you're saying is, if you run a company, you shouldn't be having hardware on site. That's what I'm hearing you say, except for maybe your PCs.
Yeah, PCs, cash registers, wands and stuff like that,
right.
Absolutely. But anything that you would think of putting back in a back office somewhere, if you think about it, right? You go into a restaurant, you open up the manager's office, and there's just these stacks and stacks of computers and hardware and wires. All that needs to go away.
Okay, so let's suppose I've got super secret information, and I'm putting it in the cloud. I mean, that sounds scary.
Do you keep your financial information at a bank?
Oh, good point. Good point. Okay. All right. So
there you
let me
go.
ask you
I'm
this.
just,
But what if? But you hear about these hackers coming in and hacking some, Target or somebody like that, and they're targeting these big. I bet you they're targeting these data centers too. What are they doing about it to protect themselves?
The interesting thing is there's a myth out there about hackers that TV and movies have really overblown. First of all, gaining access to a facility like that as a hacker is difficult to impossible. Okay, the majority of the time, the way that they will penetrate these types of facilities are through the end users. The end user is the weak link. The facility is not. And what I mean by that is 99+% of hacks, and you can go out and look at Gartner, Forrester, NIST, right? This is a national federal organization. Somebody clicked on a link, and that opened the door. And so guess what? There's no hardware, there's no software on the planet that's going to keep somebody from clicking on a link. So you need to train these people not to. And as long as you don't, you're safe.
Okay, so you bring up an interesting point. We hear about cybersecurity, and there's not a day that goes by that you hear about, companies need to have good cybersecurity. And I'll tell you, if I were a small business owner, I'd be scared because the big corporations can afford to pay millions of dollars to have a cybersecurity consultant come in. These small businesses can't afford to have a cybersecurity consultant, or any consultant for that matter, come in and tell them anything. So what do they need to do to protect themselves?
Okay, so we do have an article out on our website, which I would highly recommend you guys read.
This is on your Trenegy website.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
right?
Trenegy.com.
Okay.
Trenegy.com. If you go to publications and you do a search on what's the real definition of cybersecurity, it's basically cybersecurity demystified. Okay, I'll repeat that. Cybersecurity demystified. You're going to find out that cybersecurity has been overhyped, no different than SOX was back, 10 or 15 years ago.
They went way overboard with that.
They went way overboard with that. Here's the bottom line. Small business, this is all we do. We have laptops. We train our people. Don't click on links. If you do click on a link the first time, shame on you. You click on a link a second time, you're out. Okay, so first of all, you have to make your people accountable. Secondly, if you're running Windows 10, run Windows Defender. That's the best antivirus out there, and it's free. It's part of Windows 10. Any other antivirus that you buy will either open you up. If you buy Kaspersky, it opens you up to the Russians. The FBI just said that. You don't need to buy any other antivirus software. Just use Windows Defender. Don't click on links. The other thing that you do, let your Windows update automatically. The last ransomware that went out that just basically shut down thousands of businesses, Microsoft Windows 10 had the update out 8 months ago.
So what you're saying, you got to keep your Windows updated.
Just keep your Windows updated.
And don't click on stupid stuff.
And don't click on stupid stuff. Just do those 3 things, and basically you have stopped hackers in the tracks. Now, the next question you're going to ask me is, Peter, what happens if you are hacked? What happens if somebody gets in and gets you ransomware? Is that
actually, my next question.
Okay, gotcha.
That's 2 questions away. But
okay, that's fair.
The next real question is how do I know? Because sometimes I get these emails and they look legitimate. It says from Microsoft.
Very good.
And they look and they got their logo on it and address. How do I know?
Bill, thank you very much for backing me up. The bottom line is you don't know. What you have to do is you have to assume that anybody that sends you an email with a link is a hack. That's just, you have to assume that, okay? And what you do is...
Or attachments too, right?
Or attachments. Anything that comes in as a hack. That just needs to be your mental state. Now, if it's a link and you're curious about it, then what you do, don't click the link. Go to the website directly. If you get an email from Google asking you to change your password, don't click on the Google link. Go to Google and change your password there.
That's a good point.
That's exactly how Podesta got hacked for the DNC and how all those emails got out.
Okay. So essentially, you get an email from your bank. It looks like your bank, or from Yahoo, because you have a Yahoo account, it has your name on it, looks all official, just delete it, go directly in there. Because, it's interesting you say that, because I think back, I bank with Wells Fargo, and I got this email, it looked legitimate, but I also know they have a little information notification center, and I went in there, I didn't see the email in there telling me about something going on, and I wasn't sure about it. So good point. So really, you need to be on the alert. And is it almost like don't answer your door to strangers?
Absolutely. And you have to assume that anybody walking up to your door is a stranger. It's a sad testimony for today. But when it comes to anything that has to do with the internet or anything that has to do with computers, that's exactly what you have to do.
Right. So now you're going somewhere else with this whole, and I've kind of backed up a little bit.
No, I appreciate it. You actually slowed me down, and I think for the listeners, I will apologize ahead of time. I do have ADD, so I bounce around like crazy, and my apologies ahead of time. So where I was going is, one of the biggest things that we've heard about lately are ransomware. And there are so many different hacks. There's so many different things that hackers try to do to try to get your information and sell it, because that's the bottom line of what they want to do. Ransomware is a little different. What happens is you get a link, you click on a link, and then all of a sudden, all the data on your computer is encrypted, okay? At the same time, that link will read through your address book and send it to everybody else. It's smart enough to know everybody else in your business. And so when they click on that, it encrypts everything on their PC. And so many businesses have their data stored on servers on site. All of a sudden, everything's encrypted.
Okay, when you say encrypted, help me out. You say they encrypt your...
Sure. What they do is they read all your data files, every single one at a time, and they do it so fast, because computer, right? Computers work fast. They read it, and then they encrypt it. They run an algorithm that basically locks that data down and makes it unreadable unless you have a key to run the software, feed the key, and then it decrypts it.
So essentially what they're doing is they're just putting a lock on your computer's data and saying you can't get to it unless you have this certain key.
Absolutely.
And then you've got to go give them some money and put it in a bank account.
Absolutely. There you go. You got it. So the question is, how do you recover from that, right? This is what all my clients ask me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what do you do?
Well, here's the deal. For those businesses that have their data backed up on site, if I'm talking to you, maybe half the audience out there has what's called a Z drive. And what that drive is, or a J drive, or an F drive, and what that drive is a virtual drive that allows you to save your data on a server in the back room. For those of you who have them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The rest of you just save it on your PC potentially. Now, there are services out there. Microsoft offers OneDrive. We use Dropbox. There's Box.com. There's just a variety of these where what you can do is instead of saving it to the server in the back room, you can mirror your PC in the cloud. And all of these cloud-based services, what they do is you can call them or send them an email and say, hey, I've been hit by ransomware. They will revert you back one version of your files, and all your data is there again.
So essentially what you're saying is, I've got my PC, somebody does come in and encrypt it, lock it down.
Right.
But meanwhile, I've got it backed up to a Dropbox or one of the other companies.
Box or OneDrive. OneDrive is Microsoft, yes.
Yeah. They've got it backed up, so I just call them up and say, hey, you've got it, restore it, and I got my data back.
Absolutely.
So so you're kind of tying this all together with the cloud, right? Back to security, because because I know some guys that own businesses, and their IT guy tells them, hey, you need to buy a server. You're running this business, you need a server. And what you're telling me is that's bad advice.
That is very bad advice. There's typically no reason for you to buy a server 99% of the time. The only times that I have ever seen having servers make sense is if you're a manufacturing facility and you need the computing power on site to control process control units.
Right, but that's pretty complex stuff, though,
That's
right?
very, very complex and actually fairly rare.
Right.
Because most
right.
small businesses don't have those kinds of needs.
Okay, so cloud, that's going to help you get secure, because I will tell you, I've heard some stories, some friends of mine who own small businesses, and they've had some people come in and try to ransom some of their data, and it's cost them a lot of money, and they didn't know what to do. And it sounds like there's a lot of bad advice going on out there, because I'm hearing a lot of people still saying, oh, you got to buy a server.
Yes.
And that just is old school.
That is
Wow.
very old school.
Okay, so here's the other thing, okay? I don't know if this happens to you, but it happens to me all the time. I like using the internet, okay? And I need somebody to come out and help with some plumbing job, or replace our water heater, or do a project for us. And I go on their website, and sometimes it's not working. Sometimes I go in, I go to their website, and I go to their email and send them a request for information, never hear back from them. So I look at a lot of these small businesses. They want to have a web presence. They want people to find them and get business and get revenue. But it seems to me they're probably losing a lot of opportunities out there, at least from my perspective. So if you're a small business, how do you go about getting the right website out there?
Yeah, so this, I normally don't like suggesting to small businesses to go out and get a lot of consulting services. And that's kind of strange, because we're a consulting firm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the biggest mistake that a small business can make is try to build their website themselves. It would be no different than me trying to go off and re-roof my house. I'm not a roofer, okay? But I have to have a roof on my house to protect my house from the weather, okay? You have to have web presence. So if you're going to have web presence, then go get a professional, and you can do this for $5,000 or less, and have them go ahead and stand up a website for you. And what you do is don't use the free services like GoDaddy.com or Domain.com. They'll give you 1 or 2 pages for free, but then they give you all sorts of adware. And what that is they'll give you pop-up ads that have nothing to do with your business. Let's say you're a plumber. You really don't want to have, advertisements for women's underwear on your website. Now, it might attract people to you, but the wrong people. I mean, let's get real.
Well, and that just doesn't make sense, and it'd be annoying too. When I go to a website, I don't want a bunch of ads.
Absolutely. And so what you do is you get somebody to help you build ads, and then you run them in the cloud. Okay. Again, this is where the cloud comes to order. When you run in the cloud, you become ultimately scalable. You don't have to have a server sitting in the back office, which is probably what happened to you. Is whenever you get to somebody and the website's really slow, it may be down, you get that 404 error, which is like everybody sees.
What does that mean anyway?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. All I know is it's a 404 error, and I'll never go back to that website again.
Well, at least I'm not the only one getting those.
Yeah, exactly. 404. Who thought of 404? What is 404? I don't know. It's a highway in California. I don't know. Yeah, well, okay, so it's California traffic. You're dead. You can't move. So it's the same thing. But bottom line is get your website in the cloud. Okay, and get a professional to help you. It really doesn't cost a lot in these days, because you can crowdsource building your website. You can find somebody online. They are professionals at doing this, and they can help you do it very quickly.
Okay, so you start thinking about, if you're a professional services type company, like a law firm, accounting firm, or a management consulting firm for that matter, or someone that has other businesses as customers, and you start thinking about there's all these free stuff out there, right, for your business applications. I know Google has some free stuff. Microsoft, you got to pay for it. Tell me your thoughts on that. Because sometimes when you think something's free, it's never as good as you thought it was going to be, right? What do you think?
Well, so I think that there's a challenge. There is a lot of freeware out there that allows you to do document management, manipulate numbers, if you want to go out and do financial analysis and stuff like that. The Google products from a free perspective are probably the best there are out there. I'm pretty sure you've heard of OpenOffice, right? That's a Java-based, and they're very proud of it. It's a Java-based application that Oracle now supports, and they give it to you for free. But here's the problem with freeware. If you're a professional services firm, what are your clients using? And I will tell you right now, 99.9% of your clients, if not 100% of your clients, are using Microsoft Office.
You're talking about big companies,
I'm
right?
talking about any size companies. We use Microsoft Office. Okay, we have accountants down the hall. They use Microsoft Office. So if you want to write a document, have them open a document, just something as simple as that, you need to use the software that your customers are using.
Yeah, you make an interesting point, because sometimes I get emails from people who are using maybe Yahoo or Outlook. I'm sorry, not Outlook, but the Google.
Yeah.
And it sometimes it doesn't communicate well with Outlook, and I'll get
Right.
So I see what you're saying.
Right. I mean, look, remember, the most expensive meeting that you will ever miss is the meeting that you miss. Think about that.
That's a good
I know,
point. Yeah.
That's a Yogi Berra-ism almost. Yeah. I think it's been attributed to him, but I don't think he really said that. But the most expensive meeting you have is the one that you miss. And here's the problem. Most of your clients will be running Outlook, just as you said. And if I try to send a .meet, an iCloud invite, a Gmail invite, or a Yahoo Calendar invite, sometimes they're incompatible. They'll go into junk even. So, I have a recommendation. Can I?
Absolutely. That's what you're here for.
Okay.
We need your opinion and
Perfect.
advice.
Perfect. Guys, I got to tell you, Microsoft has done a great job of packaging up their solutions in what's called Office 365. And Microsoft, over the past few years, has worked really, really hard to drive down the cost of this offering to the point where you can get Office 365, get email set up no different than ExxonMobil, which is a large company, or Walmart, or let's pick any company, okay? But Microsoft manages it for you. It's easy to set up, and you pay a fee per month. You get Outlook, you get Word, you get PowerPoint, you get Excel, all the products that you need. They're automatically updated. They're secure. And guess what? You are compatible with your clients.
Okay, Peter. Be honest. Is Microsoft paying you to do this? Because this sounds too good to be true.
Absolutely not. Microsoft's not paying me. And actually, by and large, I don't like large software companies because they have a tendency to dominate the market. And I just don't like it when people do that.
Well, you're pro little guy, right? You're
Absolutely.
For the little guy. So,
absolutely.
But what you're saying, though, is really what the bottom line is. If when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Yeah.
When your customers, they're using it, try to mirror your customers and look professional.
Absolutely. See, this tells me you're not a technology guy, and I'll tell you why I say that. You said it so much better than me, right? I zero in on the solution. That's great. But yes, so I always recommend to my customers, go ahead and get Office 365, and there's a lot of benefits to that. Remember we talk about servers and getting rid of servers? If you use Office 365, you don't need an email server because it's all done in the cloud.
Okay. So here's another question for you. I hear this word software as a service, okay? And you haven't mentioned that, and I hear a lot of these smaller technology companies are coming out saying, we offer software as a service. So tell me about that.
Well, actually, we've just been talking about software as a service. My whole discussion around Dropbox, that's software as a service. And I'll explain to you in a second. The Office 365, by paying a license fee every month, somebody else is running it in their cloud or in the cloud, and you get the software as a service. That is software as a service.
Oh, okay. So essentially what you're saying is that cloud service is essentially the same thing as a software as a service, but you're almost like you're paying a monthly rent or fee to use that service.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
And you pay as you go. And I guess I oftentimes don't spend a lot of time talking about things like software as a service or even really using the term cloud as much as I have today, because those to me are all just marketing terms. Let somebody else have the headache. You just pay as you go.
Okay, so accounting software. I hear small businesses ask all the time, what should we be using to get good financial reports? What do we do? We don't want to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a great question. All your questions are great questions. But here's the deal: when you look at the size of your business, whatever size you are. So whoever's listening to this, I guarantee you there is software in the cloud that can run your business, and you can pay as you go.
So can you give me an example of what you're like?
So for example, I can get QuickBooks Online. That's what I use to run my business, and I pay $20 a month. And guess what? I can keep my books. We can get balance sheet, income statements, and I can pay my bills. I can track my personnel. I can track my projects. For larger companies, for some of you out there who are gun nuts, there's a company out there called cheaperthandirt.com. If you've ever been online and you've bought a firearm online or ammo online, there's a high probability that you've been there. For those of you that are motorhead, Summit Racing is a very, very famous website. Those run a package called NetSuite. NetSuite runs in the cloud. And so when you start talking about different size companies, there's different size packages out there. If you really want to know more, that's a whole podcast in itself, Bill. Again, at Trenegy.com, we have, if you go and look in our publications and our perspectives, you'll see a whole write-up of all of these different pieces of software. And actually, we have articles on how you select the software. We get no money from these. This is purely, us trying to help small businesses, figure out how to select the right solution for themselves.
Got it. That makes perfect sense, Peter. And you've mentioned several times some of your publications you guys have put together. I mean, how many do you have out there?
I'm embarrassed to say that I'm actually not the best guy with numbers, right? My business partner always makes fun of me and says that when I hold both of my hands up in front of my face, I count 20. So, and I'm not deformed. So, we probably have over 130 articles out there that we have written to help small businesses answer questions about typical issues and problems that they face. Our articles, we like to believe, our articles are very, very crunchy. And what I mean is they're full of data, they're full of information. And what they do is they don't just share a consultant's point of view for how to solve a problem, but they take you through what other people are really doing and what's happening within the market and what we see. And the opinion that you get is what we see that works well and what you shouldn't do because it might get you in trouble.
Okay. So let's go back to security for a little while because I think we talked about hackers. We've talked about, not clicking on the right things and the like. So if I do decide to go to one of these cloud software as a service type companies, how do I know they're secure?
Well, if you go to a reputable company, and it's not hard to find reputable. In other words, if you do a Google search on the company and there's 80 gazillion returns, they're highly probable that they're reputable. The interesting thing is when you say go to the cloud, there's just some usual suspects. When we were talking about data storage, that's Dropbox, that's Box, that's OneDrive. Google is now starting to offer storage in the cloud. All those are names that you've heard, okay? If you want to run your website, Amazon has web services. I know Amazon's taken over the world, but they know how to run a data center. It's Amazon Web Services. Google offers it. There's just a variety of places that you can go. And all of them, especially if they're publicly traded, they have to go through scrutiny to get certified so that they can be still publicly traded. And so what happens is as part of the audit process, they get heavily looked at, and if there are any weaknesses, it's published, and they don't want that published because guess what? They lose customers. So it behooves them to be as secure as they possibly can be.
So tell me this. I hear a lot of, and I heard recently an article talking about passwords.
Okay.
And how hackers are how they're hacking into your passwords, and there's different opinions floating around out there how you need to use it with different characters, and you should or shouldn't. I mean, what's your view on that?
Well, it's interesting. I think that a few years ago, hackers had this belief when you had passwords that would only be like 3 and 4 characters. Hackers had this belief that they could go and do what's called a brute force attack. All they do is they go to the website and they keep hitting the website with random sets of characters until they get in. Websites have gotten a lot better today. So first of all, you have to have more characters. A website won't let you hit it more than 2 or 3 times. So I've been locked out, right? Even on my Yahoo password, when I forget it, I do it 3 times and it locks me out for 20 minutes. Same time, sends me an email. So if somebody's trying to hack and do that brute force, I'll get an email and I'll know immediately, and I'll do something about it. So the whole concept of trying to get really complicated with your password is unnecessary in today's world. Just have some mixed characters. Don't use password 123. Don't use password. Don't use the name of your dog. But use something that you can remember. And it would be nice to have a mix of characters and numbers and maybe special characters.
Interesting. So really, you need to make sure you use a password that people can't guess, and some of these rules they've put in place are there to protect you.
Right.
So
there's one other thing. I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. But if you are, so that's the type of password that you should use for like email and just non-financial things. Any financial website that you go to, whether it's your bank account or whether it's your trading account, anything that has financial, use what's called dual authentication. Okay, what is that? Dual authentication is pretty simple.
He's trying to take away my job. He's asking himself questions.
Oh, I'm so sorry. If you were going to ask this question, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm just.
But I'm just saying that this is the one extra layer that I highly recommend all. If it has anything to do with financials, anything to do with highly, highly private information, use what's called dual authentication. And what that is you log in, and then you will get a text on your phone, your iPhone, with a code that then you enter, and then that allows you in.
Oh, okay, so it prevents someone from, and maybe somebody's trying to hack in, they have your password, they go in, and then you get an email, and you're like,
right.
No, I'm not
They
giving
can't, They can't,
Okay.
unless they have your phone.
Okay.
Unless they have your phone and they're with you, they can't hack your account, even if they know your password. So in those cases, like I did a test, if I have a bank account, I could use the word password because I use dual authentication.
Okay. So let's talk about other devices. Okay. And I heard this story from an attorney friend of mine who said that they actually were, a hacking attempt was made through their printer. How in the world? I mean, you talk about all these devices, and you hear about, you hear about smart homes and all these other devices and everything. Let's talk about that for a little while. And I guess my question for you is, how do you stop somebody from hacking through your printer? By the way.
Okay, so it's actually pretty simple. The way that the hacks come through the printers, it only works if you have a wireless printer or a printer that has Bluetooth and allows you to connect your iPhone or another device wirelessly. Okay, and here's what happens. HP, I'll just use HP as an example. HP will allow an iPhone to Bluetooth a file to it to print, okay, or to it to scan and treat as a scan. And what's happening is people have gotten smart enough to know that by using the iPhone and part of the scan, it'll show every computer that's connected to the printer, and you can send a file from your iPhone to that computer through the printer.
So what you're saying is, if I've got Bluetooth and wireless turned on my printer, somebody can walk by with their iPhone and see what we have and send something there.
Right.
So, how do I stop these guys?
Yeah.
Because I like using wireless on our printer.
Exactly. So you can still use wireless on the printer. What happens is that companies are getting good about loading bloatware on things like printers, and even better, on frickin' refrigerators. Refrigerators now have these screens that allow you to walk up, and they'll give you the time of day, and they'll give you the weather, and then you can look inside. This is all the whole world of the Internet of Things, and it's a little ridiculous in my opinion. But here's the deal. Whenever you connect a device to your network. A printer, a computer, a refrigerator. Even now you can put your washer and dryer so that you can connect and remotely control them with your iPhone.
Yeah.
What you need to do is look very carefully at the settings and only allow your network or any device on your network to communicate. Don't allow any external device, because what a lot of manufacturers are doing is they're leaving what's called a back door, which allows them to take over the device, do updates, and actually monitor what's going on so that they can improve the product. You need to turn all of that off.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you need to turn off some of the settings that are on there. You probably need to change the password that comes with it, like the 1, 2, 3, 4 on the little whatever it might be, or whatever the password is. And you need to make sure that only the people in your network can get to it.
Right.
Okay. So here's you're giving a lot of good information here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a small business owner, right? Some of this stuff is hard to do, to go into a device and figure some of this stuff out.
Absolutely.
So these small businesses need to find somebody to do this for them. So because you're talking about a lot of things they need to do, and some of the stuff gets complicated. And if they did something wrong and they didn't turn Bluetooth off or whatever, how do they get that support?
Well, that's actually quite difficult. You mentioned Evan, your IT guy, and I'm quite curious about it. Because if Evan, your IT guy, is what I think it is, you could go there. But let me just describe to you what a business person would have to do today. When you start thinking about the Internet of Things and setting some of these things up, your only recourse at the moment is either go to your brother-in-law, go to somebody like me. If I'm in a good mood, I'll help you out, if I'm your friend. Go to the Geek Squad.
Well, your neighborhood's got it covered, right?
Some of my neighbors, the ones I like.
That's probably all of them.
Yeah, no. There's the Geek Squad, which, we've all had our experiences there. Or even Amazon now has just, recently released a service to help with Internet of Things. The problem with all of those, though, are they're not on demand, Bill. And for me as a small business owner, I don't know about you, but I have no patience. When I need something done, I need it done right away. And one of the things that I've always struggled with is, where do you go for on-demand support for those things? And boy, if somebody could figure that out, that would just be wonderful.
Well, you bring up a good point, and we're going to conclude here shortly, but I would like to mention our sponsor, Evan, your IT guy. You're coming soon in fall of 2017, and it will be the on-demand support for IT for small businesses. Peter, any other things we didn't talk about today? I mean, we talked about a lot. We talked about getting your laptop set up right. We've talked about security and making sure you don't get hacked, and a lot of good advice around the cloud for small businesses. Is there anything else? I mean, what are any closing thoughts or anything?
As if I were a listener right now, I think my head would be spinning, especially if I'm a small business person and IT is just not my thing, and I recognize that. I have a lot of passion around it. It's what I'm good at. It's my, it's what I like to do. But if I were a small business person, I think my head would be spinning. There's good news though, and I'm not trying to pitch anything, but on our website we have on Trenegy.com and in Perspectives, a lot of this stuff is already written up. That we have also written a book called Jargon, Jargone.
So Jargone.
Right, like jargon.
Jargon.
But it's gone.
Jargon that's gone.
That's
okay.
right, jargon that's gone.
Interesting.
Yes, because consultants, have a tendency to speak in a whole nother language. Don't make sense. And I think consultants have a tendency to, the bigger the words or the fancier the words or the more misunderstood the word is, the more money they make. I I don't understand it. It's
So
crazy.
where do I get this book?
You just go to Amazon.com, and the proceeds don't go to us. The proceeds go to Boys and Girls Country, which is a
Wow.
Christian-based organization in Houston that gets absolutely no money from any governmental organization whatsoever.
So all of it's going to them. You're doing a good thing. And then, by
Right.
the way, if I'm a small business owner, I can kind of maybe have I'll call it a reality check on some of this, and maybe even carry a conversation with some of these IT guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was really the purpose of the book, is to arm small business people with a vocabulary and a glossary to basically cry BS. And again, the proceeds go to Boys and Girls Country. There's 80 kids out there. These are kids that their parents or grandparents can't take care of. And for a variety of reasons, whether they're in jail, or they just can't do it. They're infirmed. And, these kids, it gives the kids a loving environment, from any age all the way up through college.
And you're on the board there, right?
Yes, I'm on the board. I have a lot of passion about it.
Well, Peter, we appreciate you coming out here and joining us on our inaugural podcast. We appreciate it and hope to have you back again soon. And have a great day.
Thank you.